If the United States and China go to war, would the U.S. homeland be at risk? A viewer asked me this question, I thought about it, and I think the answer is almost definitely yes, but not in the way you might think. And yes, for this video, I am wearing my Department of the Boat People shirt, which you can get on Bunker Branding. Now, I want to split this up into 6 sections. Kinetic targets, cyber targets, asymmetric warfare targets, information warfare targets, financial warfare, and legal and political warfare targets. Now, before I get started, let me talk about ground news. I read ground news every day, and I saw something funny. I was reading how Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth is back in front of Congress, and one of the sources on this was Hollywood Life. They actually had a pretty good article about Secretary Hegseth's net worth. So I looked at ground news. Hollywood Life is actually of high factuality. That was not on my bingo card. Since ground news gives me the political bias and ownership information of the publication, I also know who is telling me what to think. There's also this blind spot report I read every single day. It's critical to understanding stories you may have missed because of your own political biases. For example, did you know that mass looting has been reported in Los Angeles during the ICE riots? I mean, if you lean left, you might not have seen that. Or did you know that the founder of crypto exchange, AvidaPay, was arrested for laundering $500 million for Russia? Well, if you lean right, you might not have seen that. Look, I pay for ground news myself. They don't give it to me for free. I find it so important that I read every day. So click the link in the description below, go to ground.news/Ryan, hit the QR code somewhere up there, get 40% off the Vantage plan, which is the same plan that I have, and start getting the whole story. Let's start with kinetic targets. First of all, that doesn't necessarily mean kinetic targets are on the ground. It could be up in space. Satellites would probably be the first things to go. This means China attacking American allied satellite targets with kinetic and non-kinetic means. In 2007, China destroyed an old weather satellite in a test of an anti-satellite missile kinetic kill vehicle. And some of the 3,500 pieces of debris from that test are still in space. Sometimes the International Space Station actually has to move to avoid those pieces of debris. It'll take about 100 years or so before all the debris falls back down to Earth. A war between the United States and China could theoretically cause a massive debris field, which would close low Earth orbit for the foreseeable future. There's also other methods of disrupting satellites, like with electronic warfare, where the satellite stays in place, we just can't actually use it. Targets would likely include GPS and military communications satellites. On the ground, it's almost for certain that in some sort of conflict with China, Andersen Air Force Base in Guam would be hit because it is a major bomber and tanker hub, and Guam is a U.S. territory. It's also possible, although I think less likely, that China would hit the naval base at Pearl Harbor with missiles, although that attack didn't work out so well for the last country that tried it.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for them.
Next would be cyber targets. A lot of people think that China would try to hack military networks, but that's a lot harder than you think because military networks are air-gapped, meaning there's physically no connection to the outside network. Now, a lot of military goods in the U.S. travel by rail, ship, truck, civilian cargo carriers. So it is likely that the logistics systems that shipping companies use to move cargo could be targeted. So we're talking about electronic logbook software, manifest software, even billing software, right? Because if the shipping company can't send out a bill, are they going to be all that eager to help you ship goods? Now, in 2023, Iran penetrated this Pennsylvania water system in this small town. Why would you do that? Well, if you cause thousands of failures of municipal water systems in the U.S., who responds? The National Guard. So now you have the National Guard dealing with local issues, handing out water, instead of training up to go to the Pacific and support Taiwan. Even just disrupting things like checking accounts could have an effect because soldiers have families. And how effective is a soldier going to be if he knows his wife doesn't have any money to pay their rent or to buy food because China electronically turned off their bank account, right? Or electronically turned off ATM access. Next is asymmetric warfare. Now look, I don't want to get into the whole immigration debate. I know some people are going to be screaming at their phones. If you don't believe me, believe NPR. I have some good viewers, so I'm going to trust that you're mature enough to handle this. There is a non-zero chance that some of the Chinese who crossed the border in 2024 were not looking for political asylum. If that's the case, we could have cells right here, right now in the United States, awaiting orders to strike targets within the U.S., and we don't know where they are. That's bad. Now, they probably wouldn't strike military bases, but they could go after individuals or high-value targets of infrastructure. Next is information warfare targets. That's you. That's why TikTok exists. When I've said that TikTok is a weapon system, here's how it works. Let's say China wants to stop the United States from supporting Taiwan in a war. So they suppress pro-US videos on TikTok. Then all of a sudden, influencers are talking about how China will win and Taiwan is corrupt, and this is just a war to enrich the military-industrial complex.
Imperialist, colonizer, settler state.
I mean, that's exactly what Russia is doing in Ukraine. And we still haven't banned TikTok. It is absolute madness that we're walking around with a Chinese weapon system in our pockets. Next is economic and financial warfare. Now, this would be things like disrupting global markets to crash U.S. equities, attacks on the dollar's reserve status, and sanction evasion networks to kind of keep China's war machine going. China is watching how Russia is surviving their sanctions, and they are learning. This also means that the cheap Chinese crap that comes into U.S. ports every day stops cold. If you thought tariffs were bad, this could be worse. I could even see container ships getting turned around. Look, when you look at something like the Port of Virginia is right next to Norfolk Naval Base. We've got 3 carriers there right now, I believe. Do you want an Operation Spiderweb style attack? Because that's how you get an Operation Spiderweb style attack. You know, the civilian container ship port, literally right next to a military base that holds our aircraft carriers. So I could definitely see us just turning Chinese ships away because it would be impossible to inspect every container for some sort of sabotage, robotic weapons, or drones. This would mean there would be no more iPhones, no more laptops at the store. It would look like the first couple weeks of the pandemic where everyone was buying new computers to work from home. And finally, there is legal and political warfare. This is part of what China calls the 3 warfares, which they define as public opinion, psychological, and legal. So this would mean using international legal forums to delegitimize U.S. actions, vetoing resolutions in the United Nations, pressuring states to try to sanction the United States. This would also go into funding U.S. political groups and influencers to support an isolationist narrative. Good example, Tenet Media scandal. This is where influencers were paid by Russia to push a pro-Russian narrative. I could easily see the same thing happening with China. So in a nutshell, yeah, the U.S. homeland would be targeted in many different ways if there was some sort of conflict with China over Taiwan. And hey, if you want to read about a conflict like that, check out my novel, The Wind Machine. It's about a hedge fund manager whose AI-powered supercomputer discovers the war with China. It's on Amazon and Audible for Marines. I also have signed copies of Bunker Branding, where you can get my Department of the Boat People shirt. Thank you guys so much for watching.
Wow, this girl from Watertown sure is cool. Hey kid, what's going on?
Think tank!
You know, a girl from Watertown is kind of like riding a moped. It's lots of fun till your friends see you on one. What's really cool is a t-shirt or hoodie from Bunker Branding.
Wow! Intel Life! Control-C, Control-V! That's exactly what we do!
And Bunker Branding has all sorts of cool gear. Intel Life, Air Assault, Live, Laugh, Launch for Destroyer, Trident, HIMARS, and Patriot. Think outside the bomb. Drone Suite Drone, Department of the Boat People, Landmines, and even the tow missile. It would behoove you to grab one today. Girls from Watertown aren't cool, so wear your Bunker Branding gear.
Now I know.
And knowing's half the battle. Hey babe, you wanna dance?
Bunker Branding.